My mother, Bunty Charles, was the welfare organiser for the camp in Honiton. She basically ran the place as far as I can see. She certainly put a lot of effort and work into it. I was about 17, 18 and we didn't see her for 6 months basically. I don't really remember how it actually started. I've got 3 sisters and my father had, funnily enough, he had just recently died. He died in the April of 1972, aged 50. The whole sort of the Asian, influx was something that my mother probably threw herself into after my father passed away. I mean, she had been involved in the WRBS, all my life I remember her being involved. Her main role, before all this came along, was she was involved with clothing which they used to bundle up and send out to Africa and third world countries. She had a van that the WRBS provided, which lived at home. She had it there all the time. And we would often go down to New Nabert or go to Corsham, either collecting or delivering these great big bundles. They were huge, these bundles of clothes that they collected. She was also very involved with the Devon Army Cadet Force, and I think that's possibly where the link came, because of the army camp. She used to do the catering for their summer camp every year, which involved going to camps all over the country and spending 2 or 3 weeks catering for 300 or 400 cadets. Wow. So she was very adept at dealing with a lot of people, if you know what I mean. And I think then she was also involved with Meals on Wheels, quite heavily involved with that. So again, and all these sort of things, she basically did voluntary work all the time. Apparently she did a little bit of work up at Yeovil, where they had a camp. And then when they decided to open Heathfield Camp, as it was then, they sent her down there to set the whole thing up. And then she used to work, all the hours, I can remember that. And she used to arrive home, very late at night, go in early. On 2 or 3 occasions, the buses arrived quite late at night or in the middle of the night. And I was roped in to go down and help escort these refugees to their quarters, which I can remember were pretty grim, but, I think they were probably just pleased to have somewhere to put their head down by then. But I can always remember it was always at night and always dark, and I always had a torch in my hand. And these poor people with their suitcases that were turning up out of the blue, I felt, really desperately sorry. But at least they were sort of being looked after, and that was the main objective, I think. In terms of the speed of operation, the speed of setup, the facilities that were offered, it was an incredibly successful operation. I think that people look back on it and probably think, well, it was amazing. In 90 days, these days I don't think you'd ever get it organised. No. It would be so much red tape and health and safety and blah 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 blah. It would take them a year to get things organised. We did meet a few of the Asians that came over and got quite friendly with 1 or 2 of them, and they seemed to, I wouldn't say they enjoyed it, but they certainly appreciated it, I think. It's a sort of gene that obviously ran in our family. My great aunt, called Alex Stanley, she actually got an OBE for organising the WRBS effort in the Lynmouth floods, which were back in 1950 something. I can't remember exactly when, but there was major floods. Lots of people died. And then, of course, in the 73, Bunty was awarded a BEM for her work and her effort. I think, obviously, the Ugandan Asian was a big major effort, but she'd obviously done many years of voluntary work with the WRBS. Meals on Wheels, the Devon Army Cadet Force, etc, etc. And I can remember driving her up to London to go to Buckingham Palace. Very exciting. The camp had been obviously a big part of Honiton for many years when it was an army camp. When they closed it down, you did sort of feel that there was a sort of limb missing of the town. It was just something that had always been there, certainly since the Second World War. But yeah, no, I can always remember it being sort of, once it was closed, it was empty, and the fact that Ugandan sort of situation did actually give it another lease of life, made use of it for another few months, which was good. And then after that, I think it was closed, and it was never used again. My father Richard Charles was a very quite well-known character in the Honiton, Dick Charles, and he was very much involved with the rugby club, and the army camp used to provide quite a lot of players for the rugby, and for many years they used to sort of supplement the Honiton Rugby Club with a few players from the army, which was quite nice for them. So he was also involved a lot in Honiton. Well, Bunty, I think her career, if you want to call it a career, was, I think, the sort of highlight of her life, really. Without any doubt at all, her voluntary work was the most important thing to her. And that she was one of these people. She was sort of one of these go-to people. If you want to get something done, find a busy person. And she was one of those people. And nothing would stop her getting things organised. Some of the stories she would tell, you'd be amazed at what she actually managed to achieve on thin air, really, because I don't think they had huge resources or money or anything like that. And this was the other thing, the camp, when the Ugandan Asians came over, there wasn't much money.
Yeah.
I mean, lots of volunteering and lots of donations and very, very little money. Bunty didn't get paid. She worked there for 6 months, flat out, and didn't get paid a bean. It just wouldn't have happened today, I don't think. People would just be saying, well, I'm not going to do that. Whether the WRVS has got the facilities and the capability of doing something like this, but again, it's probably wrapped up in red tape. And you look and think what they did. It was all about looking after the refugees, not worrying about the red tape and all the sort of administration and the admin and this. I mean, where all the food came from, I really don't know. Whether that was the WRVS again, probably Bunty organising it, I suspect. And I think also, actually, it was, ironically enough, it was quite handy that Honiton was on a train line. My lasting memory is of meeting these people coming off this coach, and then they'd have to go and get signed in or registered or whatever it was, and then having to take them across this dark camp, late at night, wet, cold, and these poor people with their suitcases. And I can remember that distinctly. With a little torch saying, and then of course they'd wake up the next morning, wouldn't have a clue where they were. Hadn't got a clue. Yeah, it was quite an achievement, I think, and I think probably as very unlikely to be repeated.